Joined here in Washington by Stuart Levey. He served under both President Obama and President Bush as Treasury Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. And one of his last acts as Treasury Undersecretary was to freeze those Libyan assets back in February. First of all, thanks for the time. He's with the Council on Foreign Relations now. I should point that out. Tell me, first of all, about these assets. $30 billion. This was the biggest asset freeze of its kind.
That's correct, Peter, and thank you for having me. We identified this $30 billion that was in the United States financial institutions, or interest in this $30 billion that were in U.S. financial institutions on my last day at work. And in fact, we got an executive order to President Obama, which he signed late on a Friday night, and we wrapped up this $30 billion so that it's now available for the Libyan people and their legitimate government. That was the original objective of these sanctions when President Obama imposed them back in February, which was to preserve this significant sum of money for the Libyan people.
What kind of assets are we talking about, and what would actually the procedure be at this point to free this money up to a new replacement government, assuming that's what we see? Well,
there's a wide variety of sorts of assets that are involved here. Some of them are simple bank accounts, and those are simple, but some of them are complicated assets, investments in real estate trusts, stock in non-public companies, that sort of thing. There are actually two steps that have to happen. One is there's currently a UN Security Council resolution which orders all Libyan government assets frozen. That was passed after the United States put sanctions on. But we also have our own sanctions in place that pursuant to that executive order. The process wouldn't be that complicated on the surface. The president could simply lift the sanctions and make the assets then available again to the quote-unquote government of Libya. I think what you'll see, though, is using the fact of having the assets still frozen as a point of leverage for the United States and its allies to ensure that they have a legitimate government that they can trust in Libya to give this money to.
All right, Margaret's got a question for you, I think.
Mr. Treasury Undersecretary, I had spoken with one of the finance ministers, or one of the leaders of the rebel government, and he had said, short of getting that $30 billion directly to them, they simply wanted to use it as leverage to take a loan out against that asset amount to use in the near term because of liquidity constraints. Why isn't that the first option here, to get them cash as quickly as possible?
I think that is one of the options, Margaret, and that's one of the things that has been discussed over the last several months. Over the course of the last 6 months, there have been a number of times when people have looked to this sum of money, the sum that's frozen by the United States and by its allies, and said, why can't we use this to help the rebels? That's somewhat complicated to do. We had the power to do that, but we decided that it would be too aggressive to sort of seize this money and just give it to the rebels. So the other idea that has arisen is the one that you mentioned, Margaret, which is to use this as collateral for a loan, or to, which is something that is being considered, or simply to get other countries to make a loan, knowing that there is assets from which they could be paid back in the future.
But what is the most probable outcome? If you're uncomfortable giving them the money, why not allow them to use it as a loan so that the Libyan people can benefit and help setting up a state?
I think the most probable outcome is a combination of what you've just said, which is to make sure that there are some assets available to the rebels, or to assist in the transition. We're already seeing governments talk about that now. But to maintain the ultimate leverage of releasing all of this money, which comes to not just $30 billion in the United States, but another 10 to 15 billion elsewhere around the world in Europe, as leverage to ensure that we get the kind of government that we'd like to see in Libya.
$30 billion. Tell me what you think the assessment is. There's been a great debate about the effectiveness of sanctions over the years. What do you think this history is going to say about these sanctions at this particular time? Did it make a difference in perhaps toppling Muammar Gaddafi? And what message does it send to Syria?
Well, I think the whole story of sanctions in Libya is a good news story. It shows that when it's part of a broader policy, sanctions can be very effective. Sanctions are not effective if they're used as an alternative to a real policy. But what we have here in Libya is sanctions being used as part of a broader aggressive policy, and here they were very effective. Obviously, the military action is the principal cause of the fall of the Gaddafi regime, assuming that actually happens. But having this money wrapped up and unavailable to Gaddafi and his cronies not only had a big psychological impact, it also made their operations much more difficult. And it shows the power that this kind of action can have. I think that the overall effect of what we're seeing in Libya has got to make the Syrian government much more nervous about its future, and ultimately even the Iranian government more nervous about its future.
A message to the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Stuart Levey, appreciate very much your time for joining us. Former Undersecretary of the Treasury.